What's up, everybody? Welcome to S.W.A.T MMA, where we're smoking weed and talking mixed martial arts. I'm Jarrod. I'm here with Paul.
What up?
We're coming to you from the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. This is episode number 85, and today we're going to be taking a look back at UFC 256, a look ahead to UFC Fight Night Las Vegas, headlined by Stephen Thompson versus Jeff Neal at 170 pounds. We're going to discuss some boxing, including Canelo versus Callum Smith at Super Middleweight, plus some news in the heavyweight division, and we're going to round things out talking about BKFC 15, which we saw just this last weekend, and a discussion about the upcoming BKFC 16 next year that sees the debut of one Paige Van Zant in Bare Knuckle Fighting. Before we get started with all that, let's dive into our weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
All right, this week we are smoking on two different kinds of flower and one kind of concentrate. And I'm going to grab this joint that Paul just passed me. This is the classic Fire OG that we have been smoking for a minute. So we're not going to spend too much time in that. But it is a good weed. You know, I was just reading that this is one of the most popular strains of the summer of 2020.
Well, it's been a rough year, so people got to get over it somehow.
Right. We've also got some headband today. Headband's one of my favorites, bro. This is OG Kush, so we're keeping in that OG fucking flavor we've had going on this past like 6 months now.
Yeah.
It's OG Kush crossed with sour diesel.
Yep, that's.
Yep, we got a nice fat jar of that right here. I don't know if you're gonna like that too much, but me, I am a fan of anything sour diesel. And this gets its name from that heavy sativa buzz that it gives you. That almost feels so tight around your eyes like you got a headband on. So they call it headband. It used to be called headband OG, I think. I couldn't verify that online, but in Colorado when I was growing up, or not growing up, but in Colorado when I was puffing it, it was headband OG.
I feel it.
Who knows? And finally, we have some THCA diamonds loaded up in the packs 3 with some Ghost Train Haze diamonds. So whatever you're smoking on, folks, I hope it's something good. Fire it up, and let's get started on some combat sports. Had a pretty good last weekend. You know, I got to say, I ordered the BKFC event, which we'll save that for later in the show. But we had that on Friday. And, of course, we had boxing that came on early in the day since it was over in London.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into that a little bit. I kind of like to start, though, with the UFC 256 pay-per-view. There was some pretty good action on that card, Paul.
Yeah, it was like it was one of those sneaky ones. You know what I mean? On paper, it wasn't packed with huge names, but it had some memorable.
The main and the co-main event delivered, I thought.
Oh yeah, the prelim, co-main, and main event delivered as well. Like
yes.
The two co-main and main event, the prelim and the main card, were probably the best 4 fights.
So we had the 125-pound title fight at the beginning, which was a 21-day turnaround for the champ, fighting Brandon Moreno.
It's 21-day turnaround for the challenger as well, though, because
Brandon Moreno
on the same card beat Brandon Royval.
Royval. Yeah. Excellent fight there as well, which saw Royval. That was when he dislocated his shoulder. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was tough. Good fight. And we also had, of course, Tony Ferguson fighting Charles Oliveira in the co-main. And then on what they call the prelim main event, we had Kevin Holland, right? Versus
I'm talking about Cub Swanson, and then Rafael Faziev. I'm sorry if I say his name wrong.
I missed that fight. Unfortunately, I had to do a little bit of travel, and I missed that. That's probably why it wasn't occurring to me. But those were some standouts on there. I did look back and see the KO on that. I believe it was a little bit of a comeback for Swanson, wasn't it?
Swanson.
Let's start with that one. Tell me your thoughts on that fight. Like, what went down? This is at 155 or 45?
45.
45. All right.
I'm an asshole, so I got to look up his opponent's name again. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. But it's good seeing Cub again. Why don't you pass me that joint?
Yeah, coming off that ACL tear, that wasn't even from a fight. It was in the UFC Fight Pass, the jiu-jitsu tournament that they put on.
Right.
Where they had the Pride. It was Pride, WEC, and UFC. It was a little event they did last year for the International Fight Week. and I think he was had a match with Jake Shields, I want to believe, where he got caught in a leg lock and tore his ACL at age 35 or something like that.
That is tough.
Which is just ridiculous to come back from. And then, so what happens early in the fight is he gets stung with a bunch of leg kicks. Because going in, I don't think he was ready for how big his opponent came in. Because, there we go. Daniel Paeta, that's his name.
Daniel Paeta.
I forget. Forgive me. But he came in, like, looking really, really big compared to Cub, like thickness-wise. And he just came in, he freaking stumbled him with just nasty leg kicks. It was like one of those situations where both guys came into that fight looking to make an extra 50 G's. You know what I mean? And then, so in the second round, Cub comes out and just starts tagging him. After
this was at 45 pounds.
Yeah,
I just double checked.
Just started tagging him like nonstop with the lefts and rights, and then he just lands perfect shot, knocks him down, knocks him out.
Well, good. Cub needed a win. I don't want to see Cub on this.
Yeah, it's 2 in a row there.
With these cuts that are coming supposedly in the UFC, I would like to see Cub stick around. I'm a fan.
Well, then that's a second win after his upset of Chrome Gracie right before that knee injury too. So you know, it's like
I really thought he was going to lose that Gracie fight.
Yeah,
I
don't blame him. I thought he was too.
Yeah, glad to see him get the win there too. And it just so happened with all this lockdown stuff, I went back and rewatched the MMA show Kingdom, which if you haven't seen it, folks, you can get it on Netflix now. Kingdom, the MMA one, not the. There's another show called Kingdom, Heaven's Kingdom, or something on Netflix that shows up. I hear people are getting it mixed up. The MMA one, it's good. Cub Swanson shows up as a fighter.
I think in the first episode.
In the first episode, I believe. Yeah.
And then in the co-main event on the prelims, you had Rafael Fiziev taking on Renato Moicano, where it was like one of those situations where, you know, you got the classic grappler versus striker matchup.
Sure.
Fiziev coming in with a highly decorated Muay Thai background in kickboxing. And then you got Moicano on the other side who's got highly decorated in jiu-jitsu. And Moicano is now moved up to 55 after cutting to 45, which, looking at his body now, don't understand how he ever made 45. He's a big guy. He's a big guy. And you know what? I think from the time he spent down at Coconut Creek, his hands have gotten so much better and his kicks and everything that in his mind, his idea was he was going to strike with him until he got tired and then choke him out or do something along those lines. You know what I mean? And he went out there, and don't get me wrong, for the first 3 minutes of the fight, I was like, wow, I'm very, very surprised with how well Moicano looks on the feet. But then in those last 2 minutes is when Fiziev was able to just find all the openings, and he was landing just disgusting combos. Like like the finish was just ridiculous. Ends up getting a bonus for the night as well.
What did he finish him with? Was it a TKO or did he
straight knockout?
You knocked him out cold?
Yeah, he hit him with a leg kick, or no, he hit him with a body shot, a left, right, and just like it was one of those ones where like all 3 punches landed devastatingly. Like he like hurt him with the body shot, so he covered down and he stuck him with the right hook, swayed him to the left, and then finished him with the left hook. Ooh. Cold. It was disgusting.
That sounds nasty.
Yeah, it was disgusting. But yeah, so that's a guy at 55, which is already a Shark Tank. To think if getting a win over Moicano, you could see a number next to his name come Tuesday. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Sounds like it.
So yeah, on the
that's
prelims,
a good opening.
Yeah, that's a good way to start it off. And then you start the pay-per-view off with Cyril Gane taking care of business against Junior Dos Santos.
Heavyweight fight here. You know, Junior was ranked higher than Cyril Gane coming into this.
Way higher. I believe it was number 14 versus number 7.
And look, I'll be honest, and I don't mean disrespect. I've been a fan of Junior Dos Santos since the first Kane fight, before he got the Kane fight. I mean, when he came in, back when he had hair. But I thought he looked absolutely awful in this fight. I thought he looked terrible. I don't recall him landing a punch in the first round. I only can actually recall one punch of his doing any damage. That was in the second round. He finally landed on Cyril. Otherwise, Gane looked great. His defense was pretty good. And
here's
he
my
kicked
question.
the shit out of him.
I was going to say, here's my question to you. Is it that JDS was inadequate on his feet, or was it that Gane had such a good game plan to implement his kicks, his knees, and long punches that JDS just wasn't ever really able to,
I think it's a
find
mixture
the
of
distance.
both. I don't think that JDS just came out and shat the bed, and that's how come Cyril won.
Yeah.
Like, he earned that fight, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that Dos Santos can't also look like shit.
That's
like,
true.
I thought he looked awful. Like,
True.
I didn't think he could land a punch. Like, he was just winging everything. I'm not saying he didn't throw punches. It wasn't like a Derek Lewis versus Ngannou where he was just standing there or anything like that. He was throwing all kinds of it, but he was winging air all over.
Yeah.
And he looked like befuddled by leg kicks.
Well, you also have to remember though that this guy is obviously I'm talking about Gone here, but
is it Gain or Gone?
Gain, Gone, I'm not sure.
I'm not
Either
sure,
one.
yeah.
I've heard people say both. So he's a guy who comes in from that same gym that Francis originated from. So they're going to be striking heavy. They're going to have, a lot of different looks when it comes to on the feet. And now you're looking at two guys who are really in that top 10, that upper echelon of the division. Maybe
Junior's fallen too in love with his boxing.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. You really think you're a good boxer. And I'm not saying he's not skilled, but I mean, he thinks he's so good he wants to go compete, in pro boxing and shit. I don't see it. Okay, and that's coming with a boxing background.
Yeah.
I'm not. He's good for MMA, but at this point, he seems like he forgets that he also knows how to kick. And isn't he a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well?
Sure.
And I'm pretty sure he knows how to land a takedown or two, right? So all I see him do is stand there with one hand low, one hand high, and just kind of look and get fucking leg kicked to death and then get his ass
Well,
kicked.
that's always been his Achilles heel in his career.
Yeah.
He's always had a hard time being able to close the distance with guys who have any kind of kicks or leg kicks and stuff like that.
Time to go hang it up. I don't mean your career. Like, he wants to keep fighting. That's on him. But dude, that's 4 TKOs or KOs in a row in the UFC, with the talk of big cuts coming.
Yeah.
And he gets paid a pretty hefty sum.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to be around after these cuts. And I
Unless
think it's
he
probably better for him
restructures.
because I don't think he is going to win a title. I think people have got him figured out, and he's not adapting.
Yeah.
Where he's going to go make another title run. He's 36, but he's got those wars with Kane in his past. So with no joking,
Well,
he's
you
like
got to
45
think with a guy
in
who hits
fight
that
years.
hard and stuff and comes, from such a great gym that he's put a lot of his years in that gym as well.
Absolutely. I'm sure he goes to war in the gym. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the guy, but this is a fight game. You got to call it as it is. I think he's done in the UFC. I don't want to see him get knocked
Unless
out
he
again by some
restructures.
contender.
That's the thing that a lot of people don't talk about in fighting that they do talk about in a lot of other sports is because because of the whole, the fact of it being more or less, next to prize fighting, so the thing is when you're at the top of the top, you always want to think that's your number. But when you run into a situation like the UFC is doing right now, if some of these guys who are the higher level guys, like Yoel, like Anderson, that they're willing to just say see you to, I think some of these guys should start rethinking their number. You know what I mean? If they're gonna not the young guys. No one should ever take less money if you're a young guy.
No,
but if
we're
you're on the
talking about
backside,
the Wobblies, the
yeah.
Weidmans, the JDSs, the Overeems, these types of guys. Yeah.
When the UFC is saying that they need to start cutting fighters because they can't afford the roster they have, there's going to be some pay cuts that are be coming as well. You know what I'm saying?
Such bullshit.
It's true though. You know what I mean? Like that. At the end of the day, that's like.
I wonder how much of this is posturing due to the ongoing lawsuit where they don't want to. Yeah, let's see. We can't even pay what we're paying them now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just.
I think
snatched out of thin air from me, but I don't know. I've never been.
I think a big thing that has to do with it, though, is the expansion of the roster due to the Dana White Contender Series. Like,
cheap.
Like it or not, that's really what has happened to the roster. They want to say, "Oh, we've got about 60 too many guys." How many episodes did we have of Dana White Contender Series where he gave out more than 3 contracts?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the concept, but I think they really oversaturated it.
Yeah.
Like, I like tough because it's one fucking guy.
No, it's not. Because at the end of the day,
I didn't give me a chance. It's one guy who wins it, and then they sign a few of the fighters that do good.
Yeah.
Unless it's a situation where like they're trying to create a women's division where they're going to sign everybody. But most of them, the standouts get signed, and then there's a winner. But this shit is like they're signing 50 fucking guys.
Well, here's my problem. I'll give you my counterpoint to that is I don't mind them signing a lot of people from the contender series. But I don't like the frequency of the contender series because of the oversaturation. Yeah. But at the same time, when you have a situation, that's why I like Tough though. I don't like the contender series as much as Tough because it does oversaturate the UFC and Tough does as well. But the thing is with Tough is it's a multiple fight thing. Like you don't see the guys who lose on day one in Tough end up in the UFC. You see the guys who lost in round 2 and 3 who fought on two tryout cards and then the fucking tryout for the Ultimate Fighter.
More proven,
yeah, they're a lot more proven. Whereas a guy like, I mean, no offense, but a guy like we saw last weekend, Chase Hooper got just, put on the contender series and then thrown into the UFC. And don't get me wrong, he's got some great tricks and
but he's not quite ready
for
the UFC.
He's just not seasoned enough.
Right.
And he'll get his day with the UFC as far as like making a run or doing whatever he wants to do with his career. But I feel like there's also a chance that he gets forgotten because he's going to go into situations with a guy who he's 6-0 or 6-1 or something like that, 7-1. Yeah. He's going to run to a guy who like fucking Jose Aldo who's got 50 fights or something like that. You know what I mean?
And he never had that seasoning. He's going to get in a PFL or Legacy or Bellator. I mean, he might have come from Legacy. I don't know what he was before the Contender Series, but he's pretty raw at 6-0.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's the one thing I do give them.
UFC of 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thing.
There's where guys can build the resume now.
Exactly. This is not the original Tough days where guys like Brendan Schaub and stuff like that, like that's their second pro fight.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean?
Like
guys like Kimbo Slice, like
the UFC shouldn't grow their own fighters, in my opinion. That's for companies like Bellator to do and One to do. And then what happens to those fighters? They grow out of Bellator and One, and they come to the UFC and fight in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Ideally, in my mind, it works as like the minor leagues. So
I hate to be like that, but ultimately, that's kind of what it has become.
It is. I mean,
because
that's the reality of the situation. I don't mind it so
There's
much.
exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, of course. There's guys in Bellator that should be champs. And there could be champs in UFC and whatever. But as a generalized concept, that's what it is.
Yeah. I tend to agree, but at the same time, I just have a hard time just writing off some of these guys because, like we said, the exceptions.
Let's circle back around to the UFC 256. That kind of sums up the prelims, though.
Yeah.
Main card.
And the main card.
Well, I mean, Mackenzie Dern is on there. She gets a win. I'll give her striking looked better. I wasn't too impressed with that fight, honestly.
She just edged out a win, and she showed some grit, which we really haven't seen from her in the UFC.
Her
she
striking
broke her
looks
nose.
improved. She's not good
sure.
yet, but
not good,
I will definitely say she's
I'll take it over her a year ago.
Yeah, no, she's visibly improved.
Yeah.
But that was weird. Weird fight.
She showed some toughness, though. I don't think anybody thought if you told me Mackenzie Dern gets her nose broken, they give her a way out, and she says no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was always her biggest knock going into the UFC, that everyone was like, yeah, but what's going to happen when someone beats her ass? Like, just freaking beats her up in the striking, which didn't necessarily happen, but any situation where your nose is plastered on the other side of your face is never a good one.
It's tough to go through a fight with your nose broken.
Yeah.
You got to have some grit.
Exactly. That's my point.
You can't be a pussy and get your nose broken and stay in a fight.
Well, that's the thing is when she was in the corner, they were like, she's like, yeah, my nose is broken. And they're like, okay, do you want to keep going? She's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, I'm good. And then, of course, we saw Kevin Holland with just probably the KO of the year.
Ronaldo Souza, Jacare, Kevin Holland in his 5th appearance of the year. Now, here's a guy who came off the Contender Series, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're looking for. He should, if he doesn't get the big push after this from the UFC,
since
I'll be shocked.
Roger Huerta to win 5 in a year in the UFC.
And this is a big step up in competition for him.
Yeah.
And boy, did he make the best of it. I mean, he was on bottom.
Yeah, it was a weird situation. It was like the craziest thing.
He started to get up, and Souza leaned back and man, he just left his chin right there. And Holland's arms are so long, he was able to just kind of lean up and just land this monstrous, I believe it was a left hook.
Yeah, I think it was
right on the fucking chin, and then
rocked him. You could see
like, he leans back all weird and awkward. And
well, it was a couple lefts at first.
Yeah, Holland springs back up and just
Jesus
unloads
folded
on
him
him,
back
folds
like an
him.
accordion.
Yeah, it was beautiful, but it all came from the bottom. It was a strike from the bottom.
It was nuts. It was the craziest knockout I've seen.
It was. There's been a couple of those this year. Like we had Randy Brown get KO'd from the bottom.
Yeah, by Nico Price.
By
that was
Nico
a couple
Price.
years ago, but yeah. And
yeah,
then you got Joaquin Buckley with that spinning kick. Like, there's been some crazy knockouts, but I think that one takes the cake.
Dude, I think that one takes the cake too. That's especially from the bottom. I think that's the best knockout from the bottom is where I was going with that comparison. Talking about Nico Price and that one. I think everyone kind of thought that was the epitome of it there. I like this one.
Yeah,
and I think it might be KO of the year.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the difference between those two knockouts is like when he knocked Randy Brown out, it was like, remember he like elevated his head with his leg and like
and then he
leveraged it, it. This was like a straight up like freaking haymaker from the bottom.
It was
like,
a haymaker.
It was a haymaker off his back. It wasn't like in the Nico like.
And his chin was just right there because he wasn't expecting to get punched.
Well, even in a situation where people get punched like that in the past, nobody. I wouldn't say nobody carries the power, but no one's able to generate the power that Kevin was able to land in the perfect spot and really rock him. You know what I mean? No one ever really gets the separation because it was a weird sequence. It was like he was getting up, but he kind of wasn't. Like they were separated.
Jacare?
He was in his guard, but like it was just a weird situation. And then he just freaking shot.
He wasn't expecting at all to get punched. Like he was trying to kind of get up at the same time. Holland was trying to scoot out and get up as well. And man, but that's it. That was a statement right there. I mean, that's when you come on and you take advantage of a situation and fucking stamp your fucking
foot in the ground
in the
sure.
division. I don't like his call out afterwards. He's calling out, what is it, Chimaev?
Yeah, but he also called out Derek Brunson. I like both those.
I get it because there's some push behind Chimaev. He feels should be behind him instead, which I agree totally, 100%. But I think you should shoot your sights a little bit higher.
Yeah.
When you just took out, what was Jacare's sixth in the
division?
No,
I actually think Jacare was on the lower levels of the division. Actually,
well, whatever he was, he's still
Jacare. He's Jacare. So
yeah, and he hasn't been on that big of a downswing. It's not like being the sixth guy to beat Anderson Silva or something. He's still considered elite.
Yeah, exactly. So. Well, and here's the thing too: is I think. I kind of disagree with the Chimaev thing. I think he more or less said that because he knows that fight fell out of next weekend, and that was going to be the main event, and that could be such an although Chimaev may not be the name in the game as far as like, oh he's beat this guy, and this guy. Mm-hmm. But in the UFC's eyes, he's already at that level, and they see him there. So if you're going to go in and knock that guy off his pedestal, I really don't think, like, when you're a guy like Kevin Holland, like, who doesn't necessarily, like, that was his biggest name last weekend, Jacare.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that fight makes a lot of sense. I want it to happen, to be honest. I want him and Chimaev to fight next weekend.
We'll see. I doubt it happens, but we'll see. I'm not going to hate it if it does.
I think it's going to happen because then last night at about 10 p.m., fucking Kevin Holland posted a picture of himself after he knocked out Jacare, saying "See y'all next weekend." So
that'd be crazy.
I would love it. One little thing I wanted to talk about with that fight as well is a cool little story that Kevin Holland shared after. To Megan O'Leary, he was talking about that he's dreamed about beating Jacare since he was 12 years old. And she was like, what? You mean like beating someone like him? Like, no, he goes, no, Jacare. Because I guess his grandfather was a huge boxing fan. He used to watch Showtime boxing. Okay. But because Showtime also had Strikeforce at the time, he watched Strikeforce over the UFC. So he would watch Jacare back in the day on Strikeforce, and he didn't really know about the UFC like that. Okay. So like Jacare is a fighter he's looked up to like since he was a kid, And he said that he dreamed about that since he was a child, beating him. And like during the fight, he was like saying weird shit to him because like he couldn't believe.
Talking a lot.
Yeah, he said he like couldn't believe he was there. Like he said he was like he kept saying, "Man, this is a dream," and he was fighting him.
That's hilarious. Crazy. I wasn't sure what he was saying.
Yeah.
But that's funny. Well, good for him, man. That's a weird thing.
Huge win.
That's the funny thing about the fight game. It's like, I mean, you grow up watching, someone in football or basketball or baseball, and maybe you have the opportunity to play against them or on a team with them still.
It's
That's
harder
not the same thing because you're like, oh my God, I'm playing basketball with Michael Jordan or against Michael Jordan or with
Kobe on the Wizards
or something, right?
Yeah.
But like in fighting, it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna kick this dude's ass who I've adored all these years.
Yeah,
that's a little different.
Well, and that's the thing too is like it's a little different too because on that same level as like you're gonna play with your childhood hero. Like when you play with your childhood hero in football or baseball or whatever sport other than fighting, you're still playing with them at an older level and they're not as good.
Yeah, like you just said, Jordan on the Wizards.
Yeah, it's fucking when you're fighting Anderson and you're Israel Adesanya and you have so much respect for him and you're like, oh fuck, this is crazy. Or same thing, Kevin Holland, Jacare. You have to go beat the shit out of an old man at that point. Like, right. I hate to go that way, but like to fight your childhood hero, it's gonna take some time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So for your childhood hero to still be around when you're fighting is
he ain't on the younger side.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. That's funny.
It's a crazy situation.
Well, we touched on Dern. She wins by decision. How about the co-main event at 155 pounds, which saw Charles Oliveira versus Tony Ferguson in his return after his loss to Justin.
Yeah, I'm going to let you go first because as we spoke a little bit about this earlier, and you didn't want to give too much away, but I feel like we have very differing opinions on this fight.
Well, I mean, it ends in a decision. Was it a decision loss?
Yeah, 30-26.
30-26. It was a pretty bad beatdown by Oliveira. He almost subbed Tony Ferguson with an armbar at one point, which honestly, he had the armbar extended. The angle was there. It's just Tony is not going to sub, and he's really flexible. I think anybody else would have subbed there. I think Tony – look, Oliveira is good. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but I think Tony's – peaked and is starting the descent. I'm not saying he's shot. I'm a fan. I'm not trying to sound disrespectful. But it's the fight game, man. So when you're starting to lose it a little bit, it seemed to me like he was starting to lose it a little bit. I mean, that's back-to-back losses after 12 straight. It's bound to happen. But he's also, 36? He has a weird training regimen. Does he have a head coach? I don't believe he does.
Yeah,
he has individual coaches.
Yeah.
But I think he's in charge of his own camp, which isn't whatever. He's won a lot in a row, and he knows a hell of a lot more about it than I do. And I'm not saying he's not a good fighter or shot or can't go win the title, but I don't know. The Bronx had him figured out, or Du Bronx had him figured out pretty well. I mean, it's like he had an answer for pretty much everything. So I don't know. I was sad to see it. I wanted Tony to get the win, and I thought he got severely outclassed.
All right, so there's a couple different points you brought up there that there's a few I agree with and a few I disagree with. So the whole he's peaked and he's on his way down, I disagree because of the 12 in a row. Like, the two losses he had were just bad stylistic matchups, I feel like, for me. And I feel like if you, like, I feel like this Charles Oliveira fight was a bit rushed. Like, I don't think he was really...
I agree with that.
Like,
it did seem rushed.
Like, the 10 days, what was it, like 12 days, something like that, 3 weeks, whatever, notice that they signed this on. Like, Charles is not the guy people were fighting at 45 anymore. He's not that guy anymore. Since his move up to 55, he has looked like a complete different fighter. And especially in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, his game has evolved so much. What he did on the feet against Tony and what he did on the feet against Kevin Lee was like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? Like, nobody has been ready for the improvements he's made. And I think a lot of it has to do with not moving down to 45 anymore. I feel like he's a lot more, he's a lot more fresh. He carries a lot more power. He's not, during fight week, he's a lot more relaxed. Although you could tell he still cuts a good amount of weight because freaking Oliveira's a big guy.
He's big.
But I think more has to do with his evolution as a fighter than Tony's
decline,
way down.
Possible decline.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to imply that that's it for Tony. And it's hard to just say it's a decline when he's 14-2 or 12-2 over his last 14. I mean, you look at any fighters over a 14-fight stretch, they're going to have some losses in there.
Yeah.
They might go on a 3-fight win and lose one, then they might rattle off 6 or 7 and lose one.
Yeah.
And so I don't mean to imply I think he's shot. I just think maybe you're right. I don't know. What I saw was just he was outclassed, and I don't know.
Well,
I think DuBronx is underrated.
Yeah.
And he called out for the winner of Conor and Poirier, and I think that no one is going to care.
No.
For whatever reason, I don't think he resonates
Nobody wants
with
that.
anybody who wants to see title fights.
Call me crazy. Call me crazy.
Who is it? Who do you think he should fight? Crazy man.
No, this is not who he should fight, but call me crazy. But I think he has the biggest. This is gonna sound like such a hater thing for me to say. I think he's got the best chance against Khabib out of everybody at lightweight. If you look at Charles Oliveira as a whole, what he can do on his feet, what he can do on the ground, what he can do when he gets taken down, I think he is the only one right now at 55 that would make any sense, like stylistically, money-wise, promotion. None of that makes sense. Charles doesn't get it. That's not the fight to make. That's not what I'm saying. But stylistic matchup, lock them both up in a training room just to see what happens. I think Charles Oliveira stylistically and how he sharpened all his tools and rounded out his game, that he would pose the biggest threat for Khabib in the whole lightweight division.
That's interesting, and I admit that's something I've never thought of, not one time.
I thought about it after Saturday. I never thought about it until then.
Yeah, it does suck that we're on episode 85 here, our final episode of the year 2020, and we still don't have any resolution as to the supposed retirement of Nurmagomedov. Although I'm still siding on the fact that I think he's retired and just mainly fucking with Conor at this point. But it would be nice to know if there's even a remote possibility of seeing Oliveira versus Nurmagomedov, but I kind of doubt it. That's an interesting point, though. I don't know. He's hella good. I think he stands a strong chance against any of these top guys, especially now, but I don't think he's going to get too many of them.
And if I'm Conor or Poirier, I'm staying as far away from him as I can.
You don't want that smoke.
Oh, no.
Yeah. What's the upside of beating Charles Oliveira? No disrespect to him. What's the upside here if Conor goes out and beats him or Poirier beats him? But it's like, oh. Okay.
I think he has a much better chance of fighting the winner of Chandler Gaethje than he does Conor Poirier.
Gaethje versus him would be interesting. I don't know. I'd have to see Chandler here in the UFC before I make a judgment call on Chandler versus Oliveira.
Yeah.
Gaethje's a known commodity in the UFC, so.
And that Chandler Gaethje fight is still not confirmed yet, but that's what everybody's saying is happening.
That would be nice. That's an interesting fight.
But if he doesn't have a fight and Gaethje can't fight, I would not mind watching Chandler and Charles fight either.
All right, well, he gets the win here. I don't know what's next for Tony. Tony is pretty salty this week. Did you notice? Nah. Man, I don't mean post-fight. Pre-fight. He was just very salty. Salty at the media, salty at Dana, salty at the UFC. Pretty much giving a fuck you to everybody. Called out the media a lot. He felt none of the reporters had his back, and then when he should have had title shots, he said he wasn't given.
Well, I think it's just a reality of his situation. You know what I mean? Like,
he seems like a frustrated man right
I don't blame him. 12 fights, 12-0, multiple shots at the title, an interim title at one point.
And then he never actually fights for the gold.
Never got an actual title shot. If indeed it goes down with him retiring without him getting a title shot, I think that will go down as one of the biggest runs in UFC history to ever end up in no title.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I mean, he has that interim, but it's whatever.
It's tough. It's tough. It's like the same thing as like Carlos Condit. Do people look back and say Carlos Condit was a UFC champion? No, they say he was an interim UFC champion, which they would be right.
Well, best to Tony. We'll see what happens here. Oliveira, good luck. I don't think you're getting a big fight, but we'll see. Not that he doesn't deserve it. How about that main event, though? We saw the 125-pound title defended.
It's my fight of the year.
3 weeks' notice for both these guys. Quick turnaround. Both stayed here in Vegas. Brendan Moreno, Davison Figueiredo.
Brendan Moreno became a household name on Saturday.
Goes to a decision. There was some controversy. I believe it was in the third round. There was a groin strike on Moreno by Figueiredo.
It was so bad, dude.
It was a pretty bad one, and it was the second foul. The first one, I believe, was a fence grab. Was it an eye gouge?
It was a weird situation.
Fence grab warning, I do believe, but
the
point being, the referee takes a point there, which winds up being important here because the fight winds up being a majority draw.
Well, and here's the thing: is I don't even think it had to do with the fence grab or the eye gouge. I think the egregiousness of the nut kick and in the point of the fight has everything to do with the point getting taken.
There's no way he could fully recover from something like that.
Let's just be honest.
In 2 minutes or whatever. And we all know that.
That was where he was starting to turn the fight over. Like, if you go into that beginning of the third round, he comes out, and at the end of the second is when we started to see Figueiredo start to, like, he never faded, but he slowed down for sure after about halfway.
Well, he's a guy who puts his all into every punch.
Yeah, he was trying to get
that takes
Brandon
a toll
out
at
of
some
there
point.
In the first.
Yeah.
In the first, he was trying to get him out of there so bad.
Moreno's got a chin.
Holy shit, does he have a chin? We all figured that out because there's not a single flyweight that has been able to handle that power whatsoever. And aside from a few stumbles and a few, which is normal in a fight like this, Brandon Moreno ate everything and kept moving.
Did you have Figueiredo winning if you don't count the point deduction?
I think it was, in all reality, I think it was a draw. Like, in my mind, it was a draw. Like, it was a fight where you saw...
I saw it that way, too. We were discussing that before the judgment came in, and I wasn't mad about a draw.
Wasn't mad about a draw whatsoever. Because if you look at the first round, let's just go round by round. First round, Figueiredo comes out, and this is where you start to see that Moreno's got defense and is willing to fight him. Because that's the thing, is with a guy who's got a lot of power and a lot of... Woo! He's got a lot of power, and he's tough. Yeah.
No, we're good.
So when you find a guy who's got a lot of power and he's going to walk you down like that, you're going to have to throw back because that's what's going to get him off his rhythm. Because you never want to let a guy like Davison Figueiredo start a rhythm on you and then just start rattling off shots. Because that was his biggest thing was Moreno was taking a shot, getting out of the way. Taking a shot, or he'll block a shot and then get out of the way. Because he was never in front of him. There was flurries where they went back and forth, but he never stayed directly in front of him.
No, he had great defense.
And his whole... Oh, okay.
No, keep going.
And so the whole thing is with his way of getting out of the way and kind of tiring Figueiredo out, it was the only way he was going to beat him. Because at the end of the day, Figueiredo's the hardest hitting 125er that we maybe have ever seen.
Without a doubt.
And if he just continues his dominance over the division, like, he could be one of the best 25ers we've ever seen. And I think this fight was tough, but I think this helped his narrative more than it hurt it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody comes away looking bad in this. I agree with you. I think it was a draw. I don't think it should have been just due to the groin strike. I think if that hadn't happened and it was still a draw, I'd be like, yep. It was a really close fight. It was
because I think round 3 could have been 9-9 if you take that groin strike out of there and make it 9-8. I think it could have been a 9-9 round because literally both guys.
It's a 10-point must, so somebody's got it. Could be 10-10.
Yeah, 10-10 then. Yeah. Because I just thought both guys literally just went out there and were landing pretty much everything they threw.
It was
both
beautiful.
sides.
It really highlighted the fact that these flyweights are talented and can hit very hard. Fight of the year candidate now in a lot of people's minds.
I think it's a fight of the year.
Most people had been putting
Weili Zhang
versus Joanna as fight of the year from back in March. And I would agree. I thought this was spectacular. I'm excited to have him run it back. Interestingly enough, Figueiredo's favored in the rematch already in the sports books out here in Las Vegas. Probably because they look at it as he would have won had it not been for a penalty.
Yeah.
But that's a technicality, though.
Yeah.
That's not really the truth of the fight in my mind.
Well, and here's the thing too is, I think a little bit has to do with the comments that came out after the fight about him having been in the hospital.
Oh yes, let's address that. He also
and-
said he had like some touch of the flu or something, some stomach crap at like
stomach flu.
2 a.m. He's in the hospital here in Las Vegas. Look, I'm sure that's the truth. I don't know why you would make up a lie and say that. So I'm not saying that it's not true, but I don't like hearing that kind of shit. I mean, it sounds like an excuse.
Not after a close fight like that.
Right. There's
just no need for it.
No, there's no need for it.
It puts a damper on the performances you just put on.
Yeah, and like if that's what happened, I think you should keep that to yourself as your little advantage going into the rematch. You don't need to point that out. And it just that's how I would play it as a former fighter. I would be like, yeah, you didn't know I was fucking sick last night. In my mind, you know what I mean? Be like, wait till fucking, 2 months from now when I'm healthy, I'm gonna whoop that ass.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be out making excuses talking about, I was sick. I fucking hate that shit.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
I don't like it if somebody gets injured, and they're like, if you got injured bad enough, we all saw, so you don't need to tell us.
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't mind it when Reval, like a few weeks ago in the Brandon Moreno fight, because we didn't know what happened. We could tell he got injured. When he's out there saying like my shit got dislocated. Oh, okay. Yeah. He wasn't okay.
And
we didn't
watched
know what
him
it was.
locate it, his coach put it back in place.
Right. So it's not a universal statement, but you get my point. I didn't like it, but whatever. It doesn't make me not like him.
Well, you know what I think it just does?
Fight.
You know what I think it just does is I think it makes it look like, when it gives you a reason why the fight was so good, and like you don't want a reason why the fight was so good. The fight was great because both you guys are great competitors, not because you fucking had stomach flu 12 hours before the fight. Like,
exactly. So
and who the fuck sleeps before the fucking night of their fight anyways? Nobody.
Right. So afterwards, Dana did say they're going to run this right back as soon as possible.
See, I don't know if I like that. I think you could let it marinate just a little bit. Because I think that fight's on the table still. You know what I mean? I wouldn't mind seeing someone like Cody Garbrandt or Askar Askarov or whoever else you want at flyweight to fight for the title. Because I think Davison, at the end of the day, is going to be a dominant champion. And I think Brandon is the 1B or number 2. You know what I mean? And I think if you, let's say you let this marinate a fight, right? Give each guy one more fight. Then you're talking about Davidson Figueiredo, who I think beats Cody Garbrandt. And then probably Moreno runs it back with Askarov, which I think still needed to happen before he got the title shot anyways.
It's an interesting idea. I'm more for the immediate rematch, but I wouldn't be mad if that happened. I wouldn't be crying about it from a sporting or fan perspective.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
There's merits for that as well, my point being.
Well, I just feel like when you're talking about flyweight, yeah, it's back, but you want to keep as many good fights you have on the table and let it build for as much as it possibly can. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. Well, and this kind of ties into what I want to say next. As we round out UFC 256, and before we move on, I mentioned here a second ago that Dana White said that they are going to run this fight back. Okay. Yeah. And then Dana White said something else, which I found it immensely disappointing, and I'm going to fucking bring it up and call him to task on this show, although he'll never fucking hear it.
And discrediting, too, I think.
Yes, he said, a reporter asked him who saved the flyweight division, because if you follow the UFC at all, you know that's been a talking point. It's been a talking point on our show since we started.
It's been a shit talking point between Henry Cejudo and Davison Figueiredo.
Yeah, and it's been going on since Demetrius Johnson was champ, that they're going to cut the division, and who saved it, and blah, 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 blah. And the reporter asked Dana, and Dana White, I think, has an opportunity here to really come out and fucking shine on this division and say something really positive.
Or build up his champion.
Which he could have said, who saved it? He could have said, the fighters saved this division. They've gone out. They've put on shows like you just saw. And there's been other flyweights that have come out and delivered. And instead, he says nothing like that. He says, he doesn't say it's Cejudo. Yeah. He doesn't say it's Figueiredo. He says that Mick Maynard saved the flyweight division. And I hear the people listening to our show who are not hardcore fans going, who the fuck is that? And that makes sense if you're not a hardcore fan. He's the matchmaker for the UFC. And then he went on to say that he, quote, Maynard, quote, restructured the division and did new styles of matchmaking that saved it. And he should really be credited here. And then that's all he fucking said. And I think that's patently absurd.
Here's my thing. I don't think it's disrespectful to say that, but I think it's disrespectful to say he did it himself. Like, don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, matchmaking is a big part of the game. Like,
but he didn't do anything different matchmaking.
I know, but I'm saying my point is there's nothing wrong with giving him a little bit of the credit. But you at the end of the day, you have to give it to the guys who actually put on the performances that brought the eyes to the TV.
Yeah, if it's matchmaking, why didn't you just do that 2 fucking years ago?
Yeah, true.
If that's all it took, bro, this ain't rocket science when you're the matchmaker.
Yeah.
So,
where was this before?
Is Dana? I mean, to me, what Dana isn't saying there, which just occurred to me, is that the matchmaking in the UFC's flyweight division has been garbage the past 2-3 fucking years.
It's true.
I don't know. To me, this is not when you shine the spotlight on some fucking dude who's a salaried fucking guy who probably makes more than a lot of these fighters.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with Maynard. I'm just saying, motherfucker, why don't you give some credit to your division,
to your guys,
that you've been frightening into not having a job for the 2 fucking years.
To the point of a lot of
keep you guys.
To the point of a lot of guys losing their job and going elsewhere, like Pettis.
People have left, over the uncertainty of having a job in the UFC.
Yeah.
And instead, he doesn't say any of that shit, bro. No. He's a fucking ass bag. Like, I like Dana White overall, but that doesn't mean I like everything about the guy.
No.
And this is a fucking asshole move, one of his many. Yeah. And I was really disappointed. And
well, this could have been a situation where he could have gone. It's the guys who put on the performances, like Henry Cejudo, like Davison Figueiredo, like just name a handful of guys.
How about all these guys for 2 years?
Joseph Benavidez and all these guys. Yeah.
Benavidez coming out and trying his damnedest despite getting his ass kicked twice. I mean, these guys, all of them have gone out there despite not having a certain future. The only division in the UFC that
to the point where some guys were told if they lost a fight, they're cut. If they win, they have their contract is good.
Fucking
to that point,
asshole.
like at that point,
it's just an asshole move. He's an asshole guy.
Yeah.
He says he cares so much about these fighters, and then he's pushing fucking some Chimaev motherfucker who has extremely questionable politics, to just put it mildly, and questionable actions, whether you believe in them or not, that I'm not going to dive into. But then you have guys like Kevin Holland, who's out here busting his fucking ass, can't get promoted. You got an entire division that you've scared with no job, and none of that shit, none of them get any shine. It's
the UFC does that.
It's whatever.
Just in the same breath, the same breath is like we talked about before. You know, it's like the UFC when they talk about, well, at the end of the day, we got to put on events. You know, they have to put on a certain amount of events, and they get a certain amount of number. It doesn't matter how good the events, how bad the events. As long as they put on that many events, they're good to go.
It's this new attitude, and there used to be people to keep Dana in check, namely like.
Well, I just feel like it's complacency on the top. They know they're the best. They know that they're the number one promotion in the United States, and probably 2 in the world just based off population.
It's true. It just boils down to a good CEO or a good leader gives credit to his men, or women, or whatever you want to say. But you get the analogy.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
like. You don't like when a general wins a fucking war, a good general or troop leader or whatever gives the credit to the men and the soldiers that were out there fighting in the field. He doesn't give the credit to some pointy head motherfucker sitting back in the Pentagon drawing up fucking war plans.
Yeah.
That's not. I'm just saying, like that. For fuck's sake, bro.
Well, it's like the same thing in every sport.
That's all I'm saying.
In every sport. It's like we condemn the quarterback who throws the game-winning touchdown, jumps on the microphone, and goes, "Fuck yeah, I'm the best quarterback in the world." But we love the guy who throws the touchdown and goes, "My offensive line is the best. That's why we threw that touchdown." You know what I mean? It's not about taking the glory. It's about using that, taking that shine that you get and shining a light on those who don't necessarily get the light shined on them as much.
Right. But they're out there, the guys putting in the blood, the sweat, and the tears.
And don't get me wrong, Mick Maynard is one of those guys. Just like you said before, no one knows who the fuck that is. So, yeah, he deserves a bit of the credit, but you cannot deny the performances that were put on inside the octagon, and that has nothing to do with fucking matchmaking. No. Like, at the end of the day. Like, that's just where we're at with it. You know?
So, well, let's round out our UFC talk with a look ahead to their final card of the year here, which originally was headlined by Leanne Edwards and that Chimaev dude, which got bumped off due to the virus, and now is headlined by Stephen Thompson versus Jeff Neal at 170.
Is a fucking fight, man.
That's a great fight. Stephen Thompson seems fired up. He's a little salty. He don't like this co-main event shit that was happening before. He don't like Chimaev getting ranked with one fight, and
he wanted the fight or they wanted him to fight originally.
He wouldn't take it. He called him out. He was like,
nah,
I ain't fighting that dude. Are you kidding me? And he has a point because Chimaev has one fight in the welterweight division against a guy who is typically a lightweight and who's 0-2 in the UFC. Yeah. That's his lone fight in the welterweight division, and suddenly he's ranked 15th because of some, a win over Gerald Meerschaert at 185. Yeah. Whatever. That fight got rescheduled for January. Now Stephen Thompson can take his saltiness into the cage against a really tough in game Jeff Neal. This is an important fight at 170.
Yeah, it's a huge fight. And you know what? I think this is Jeff Neal's launching point, in my opinion. I think Jeff Neal is the underground king of this division. I think he's going to be the next.
Bold.
I think he's the only one right now that can really put a stamp on his claim to, like...
That's such a bold statement. I'm going to hit this weed again.
Well, you know what I mean? I feel like at 170, everyone's kind of fought everyone. You know what I mean? Whether it be Woodley and the champion, Colby, Jorge, even Steven. Like, they've all fought everyone. Everyone's fought each other.
Colby and Jorge have not fought.
No, I just mean everyone has fought the champion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're Jeff Neal and you beat someone like Wonderboy Thompson, all you got to do is put on a performance like you did against Mike Perry, against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who's really never been finished except against Pettis. It's the only time he's ever been finished in his career, right?
That's it.
I believe so.
And at some point in fist fighting and combat, a punch is going to land on you.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff Neal lands some hard GSP got fucking punches. Knocked out. I mean, I'm not saying Pettis got a lucky punch. He landed a great punch. It was what it was. I don't see it that way. I don't think he gets past Wonderboy here. I think Wonderboy's going to tool him up. Yeah,
could happen. Wonderboy's definitely more. He's more sharpened, I would say. Like he's a lot more.
He's a late bloomer. He has been in mixed martial arts. Yeah, I mean, what was he like 90 and something and fucking
Yeah. Was it karate or kickboxing?
Karate or taekwondo or kickboxing, all this other stuff. I mean, he's highly decorated in other sports, but he's a bit of a late bloomer. I mean, when he first came into the UFC, his wrestling was super suspect, kind of like Israel Adesanya in a way. He was like, I just got to take him down. But he's evolved. He's come along.
Yeah, he's Wonder Man now.
His problem was that Pettis thing happened and made him look really bad.
Yeah.
But I don't think it – I equate that similar to the Sarah and GSP. I don't think Pettis beats him again.
Well, he was tooling Pettis before it happened.
He certainly was.
Yeah.
And Pettis just lands this picture-perfect Superman punch. I mean, shit, dude, it's fighting. It fucking happens.
Well,
I like him to win here.
Since then, though, he also had that win against oh, God, of course, his name fucking...
His name escapes your marijuana-riddled mind, as we did not discuss this one prior. But he does have a win in between there. Yeah. And
it's the guy who beat Brian Barberina as well.
Yes.
What's his name? Well, we're going to find out now, boys and girls. That little single I just dropped there on the mic is brought to you by Being High.
Do you have a Spotify link for that song? Can our listeners get more of this on a download or maybe a live YouTube performance?
That's what this is.
That would be great. But Stephen Thompson is going to win here while you're looking that up, and he's going to stake his claim to a title shot. Vicente Luque, yeah, see, and he's no joke.
He picked Luque apart.
And Luque was on a tear before it, and a lot of us thought that Luque would win that fight.
Yeah.
And he came in there and fucked him up. He put on a striking clinic, I remember.
Yeah.
And I think he's here now, and he's a little mad. You know, he's a good old boy. He don't get mad.
Yeah.
For him to even say
fired
something.
Up.
For him to be like.
You gotta have a reason.
Yeah. For him to even hint that he disagrees with something.
Yeah.
You're
like, whoa,
shit!
Simmer
One
down,
boy spitting fire.
Yeah.
Oh my god! You said you didn't like this?
Woo! He's coming for this guy.
I like him to win. I expect a good fight. I'm not going to be shocked. Well, actually, no, I will be. I changed that up. I will be shocked if Wonderboy loses this fight. And next week, if he does, or next year, because it's probably our last show of the year, you can rub it in my face.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll see. We've got some pretty good remaining fights on this card, though. How about Jose Aldo making a fight against, what was it, Marlon Vera?
Yep, Cheeto Vera.
Man. Cheeto coming off that Sean O'Malley for him.
Yeah, this is a big fight for him. You're talking about a guy who's 7th in division in Jose Aldo. Yeah. Legend, you know.
Man, that's a fight.
This is a
Cheeto Vera is nasty. I think he's really underrated.
Yeah.
I thought he was underrated going into the O'Malley fight. Mm-hmm. I don't think he won that fight on an injury. I think he caused that nerve damage in the foot. And, man.
Cheeto Vera's just super.
Nasty,
he's just
Paul.
a down motherfucker. You know what I mean?
He's a scrapper. He's a fighter's fighter, man.
Yeah, exactly. I like him in this fight. I think Aldo's past his day's done. Yeah. I think if he loses this fight, he could be one of the 60, in my opinion. Like, legitimately. He gets paid too much, and he's not championship caliber anymore, and he's just not winning fights like he used to. And I think this is a little change up of the guard, too, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like Cheeto Vera, man. He's a bad motherfucker, and I like him to win here too. Mm-hmm. And I'd like him to come out and make a statement here, and so he gets some noise off of it.
Absolutely.
I'd definitely like to see him in the conversation here.
And then
35.
Heading on down the main card, we got a fight with two of probably the biggest characters in the UFC we have.
This is a fight. This is at 170, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
We got Michelle Paeta taking on Chaos Williams, which is just two guys who are just demand every camera that you have on them. You know what I mean? These guys are just two characters. Like before his last fight, when Chaos Williams stared his opponent down from the door to the
so corny
octagon.
Doing that. I was like, bro,
damn! And then he just doop, 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 doop.
And he did exactly what you have to do to shift that from corny to badass. Yeah. And now, fuck.
And
dude,
then
that was his second fight where he came out and laid somebody to waste.
Yeah.
Chaos. Mm-hmm. And everybody, if you've seen Michel Pereira fight,
you know what
it's a spectacle.
It's a spectacle. And you know what? He's had his mixed results in the UFC. You know, he's had situations where he gassed out in his first fight.
Well,
then his DQ.
Let's call him to task here before you say DQ.
His attempted murder of.
No, that was Diego Sanchez's wizardry defense from his life coach.
Watch it in slow mo. That needed
even all of Michel Pereira's attacks in a Mayweather-esque talent level. I'm being facetious. If you don't follow that story, we're not going to get into it. But no, Pereira's something. And his DQ was.
It was questionable as fuck. He was beating the shit out of him.
He was fucking up Sanchez.
And then his last fight, winning by KO. You know, he's someone to be reckoned with.
Absolutely,
for sure.
And he's the kind of guy that if he just dials that wildness down
just
a
bit, yeah,
he
has great
force.
He's got like great fundamental striking. Like when he just goes, 1-2, 1-2 leg kick, he's powerful as fuck, and he can.
Chaos Williams appears to be his legit destroyer of worlds.
Oh yeah, his name is Chaos. Come on,
yeah,
that's his real name.
It's earned.
Yeah,
I'm excited about that fight. I would watch that as a main event. So I'm excited. Wherever that winds up being placed, I'm not sure the layout of the fight night. But
third off the main card.
That's a great one. Tune in for that one, folks. We do have the next fight. I mean,
I think it's going to be a beatdown.
It's Greg Hardy at heavyweight coming back against Marcin Tybura,
who's had another one of those guys who's had a ton of mixed results in the UFC. He's had some big fights where he's won, and then he's also had some big fights where he just got obliterated. And that's really why I see Greg Hardy winning this fight. I just don't think Tybura is really in a situation where he's mentally gonna overcome the onslaught of Greg if he just goes after him.
That's the thing. And look, honestly, I'm weary of bringing up how much I hate Greg Hardy. I mean, I guess at some point I need to ease up on my salt. That doesn't mean I like the guy or I support him in any way, but I just can't keep rehashing it every time he comes up. But I don't like him for his actions outside the cage, which he was not exonerated from, despite his bullshit trying to say he is. And what's up with MMA media letting this guy get away with saying that he was proven innocent? That is not true. You were found guilty. And got off on a technicality. That is, you were found guilty by a court. It went to appeal. Then there was a technical fucking issue with the plaintiff, and then it was dismissed. And then that's that. You're fucking found guilty, dude. Yeah. And people were trying to compare that to Mike Tyson, and that really chapped my fucking ass. And not because Mike Tyson didn't get convicted of a heinous crime, whether you ultimately believe that he did it or not, he was convicted of it. But Mike Tyson paid his fucking price. He went to prison. He did his fucking time. Greg Hardy did none of that.
Yeah, no, he paid her off and kept moving. He even played in the NFL the next year.
I mean, seriously. So it's not the same thing at all. It's not like, well, why do you like Mike Tyson? You know, and then you go in here and you wouldn't like Greg Hardy. Because it's not the same scenario, so fuck off. Yeah. So take that sad-ass fucking story somewhere else. But my point being, circle it back around and stop ranting about it, is Greg Hardy's in the UFC. I need to accept it. And I think he's actually a problem because he's so big, and he, being a NFL standout that he was before, he's a good NFL player, he can move forward on balance very well. And he has a lot of power, and he's learned how to throw a punch properly, and he's got the things
definitely put the work in.
Some things that big men have a problem with, like take Stefan Struve has a problem with balance. Okay, even now, he's a fucking veteran. He still gets off balance, and he's never mastered his size. Hardy's a monster of a man. He had to cut weight last time to make 265, and he didn't come out fat. He's just thick and huge, and
he's an NFL player. NFL players,
really well.
Most of those DNs, you know, they're walking around 275, 280 in the season, just fucking taking supplements and being a fucking non-human.
I think it's going to take a very high-level opponent to be able to withstand the charge and the onslaught of those fucking punches, man.
It's just going to take a skilled, seasoned guy, and Martian is a tough dude. I just don't think he's ready.
The mechanics of his punches aren't perfect yet, but when I say he can punch, his power is ridiculous.
Yeah, his power makes up for the.
And his mass. He's not like super tall, but
he's a unit.
Yeah, he's got a very large mass. He's kind of like Lesnar, and it's just a big, massive fucking man. Exactly, like you're just like Jesus Christ, you were like 2 feet thick, brute. Dude. For fuck's sake.
He's a brute.
So I think he's a problem. I think he's going to mow through Tybura, and I hate saying it, but it is what it is.
Then we got Anthony Pettis taking on Alex Morona. Anthony Pettis coming back.
This is kind of flying under the radar.
170.
This is at 170? I don't know about this. It is what it is. I don't know about Pettis, my man. I like the guy, man. I was a fan. I saw him way back in the day on like the MTV shit. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Pettis, yeah, he's got a good story, but I think his career is dwindling on.
Oh, clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, he has flashes of brilliance because he's really good. He had against Stephen Thompson.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but like we just said, he was getting his ass kicked before that.
Well, I think what ended up happening with Anthony Pettis is he struck when his iron was hot. You know, when he was at the top of his game, the MMA world, like he used every bit of the media in like getting his star to shine. You know what I mean? But
He
then
had
when
hiccups
he lost,
coming in. I mean, he had the hiccup with Clay Guida. You know what I mean? Or he comes out and suddenly you're just like, wait a minute.
Fails his UFC
like,
debut when it
right.
was supposed to be a title unification bout to begin with. You know?
Right. It was pretty shocking, but then he righted the ship and then gets the title, but then he loses it right away. And he's just never been the same. And I don't know if he should have changed camps up.
He's had a few injuries and all that stuff.
He has been injured too. And he comes back and
missed weight a few times.
Great. I don't know. If he loses here, though, he's in some trouble career-wise.
Absolutely.
Because 170, he needs wins here if he's going to keep moving up a weight class. That's the whole point. You can't lose to who is he fighting? Alex Morena? He's not ranked.
No, he's not.
So it should be an interesting fight to see what happens for Anthony Pettis' career.
Yeah.
What do you like? Do you know anything about the other guy?
No, I think Pettis is probably going to win.
I would hope so. I mean, I don't know. I hope he wins. I'm not trying to throw shade, man. I like you, Anthony. But if you lose here, I'm going to be bummed.
Yeah,
That's a bad sign.
Yeah. Well, and then in our prelim pay-per-view, or prelim main event, we got Bilal Muhammad taking on Diego Lima, which is...
It's the 170, right?
170, yeah.
Diego Lima is the brother of Douglas Lima, the Bellator champ. 180... Is he 170 over there? No, he's
170, yeah.
He did go up to fight 185, but then he didn't get it against Gegard. But I like him. We haven't seen much of him. He had one fight in, 2019?
Yeah, I believe it was October 2019.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Came in off the Ultimate Fighter. Was a fan of him then. This is a tough out. Bilal Muhammad is very legit.
A fucking beast.
He's a very legit fighter.
He's like... Bilal Muhammad's one of those guys who, like, you can't really point out any of his glaring weaknesses. You know what I mean? Like, you never really see him get dominated. Never happens.
Well, I'm gonna go with him. I'm gonna pick Diego Lima here, just
taking
for old
Muhammad.
time's sake. Taking Muhammad. I'm just picking more of a who I want to win.
Well, fuck your choices, all right?
No, fuck your choices.
So let's change pace a little bit here. Let's switch on over to some boxing. Close out the show.
Let's do boxing, and then we'll touch on some BKFC to round it all out, too. So we got boxing. We got a big fight this weekend. We had heavyweight action last week.
Yeah, we had Anthony Joshua go in and take care of business.
Well, we figured that's what would happen. He knocks out in the ninth round.
Yeah, it was pretty much all Joshua. Like it wasn't really in doubt.
You can't blame Bob Arum for trying to hype it up. It was his job to do so, but none of us ever really believed that Pulev was actually going to beat Anthony Johnson. I heard Arum saying that.
What? Well, on the Pulev side,
Pulev had a chance here. Yeah, that's what I mean. He was like, he's going to knock him out. He's got a chance. I mean, he's doing his job, but none of us actually bought that.
No.
You know.
No.
So he goes on and he wins, and that's important because I guess everybody talking once again about Tyson Fury and him fighting for the unification. You know, it's not since 1999 that these belts have been unified, and back then it was 3 belts. Now it's 4. This will be the first unified 4-belt championship when these two meet. But we have a problem in the fact that Anthony Joshua's got a mandatory defense coming up against Usyk, the former unified cruiserweight champion who has come up. He was actually promised an immediate title shot upon coming up to cruiserweight, and then he has waited and taken 2 fights in between, which he's won. And now he's saying he's not going to wait any longer. He will not give up the mandatory shot. So the choices are possibly he gets bought out, which I find unlikely, or Joshua drops the belt, which I also find unlikely.
I think they find a way for this to happen.
I think he's going to wind up fighting Usyk, and then we're going to get Fury Joshua if he wins in probably the fall of 2021.
See, here's my thing. I think Usyk possibly beats Joshua, but I don't think he has any chance against Fury.
I agree. He's got a chance. You know, he doesn't want to wait. He's 32 going on 33. He is a former unified titleist who he's felt he's already done his part and took 2 fights he didn't have to take.
first one he definitely did, though.
I agree. I think he technically did, but I'm saying that he was promised a title shot.
Yeah.
But he agreed to take other fights.
Yeah.
He might be able to beat Joshua. He has no prayer against Tyson
I think
Fury.
Tyson Fury is just too big for him, is what it really comes down to.
Yeah, he has a size difference against Joshua, too. I mean, you can tell he's a cruiserweight coming up.
Yeah.
But
I think his boxing skills
seen
may be
successes
able to
there
make up
before,
for a lot of that with
talking about the former unified title. I mean, Holyfield held that for a little while, and he was a cruiserweight at one point.
True.
I don't know if Usyk's no Holyfield, but we'll see.
He
It's an
was a
interesting fight, but I don't think they get around it.
dominator.
You think they're going to find a way around it and do Tyson Fury before then?
I think what they're going to end up doing is being like, hey, well, look at this. We already have this contract signed for 2021. We had it set in stone before. Give us one fight, and then we'll have him fight in between them fighting the second time
Usyk?
or whatever. Yeah.
Have him take another fight?
No. I'm saying, I'm not really thinking about this in Usyk's eyes. This is more Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua for me. But I think more or less what they're going to tell them is that he'll fight Usyk in between the two fights.
The two Fury fights?
Yeah.
No matter how they go?
Yeah.
They'll try. I mean, it could happen. They might have to pay Usyk a hefty
Boxing
fucking
politics, they'll make it happen, bro.
song.
Mandatory challengers don't always get
Tyson's not in the clear yet either, though. He is still, as of right now, as we're rounding out December of 2020, in the arbitration with Deontay Wilder for the third fight, which we've rehashed a couple times on here. We're not.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Bring it up again.
It's just getting out of control.
And Wilder hasn't helped himself with the public with his crazy comments. I'm not even interested in that fight. I mean, to be honest, I barely was to begin with because I thought Tyson won the first one, and he came out and whooped his ass in the second one.
Yeah.
And then Deontay Wilder, instead of
He's coming with 100 reasons why.
101 nutty reasons why.
He's coming out with his own book. 100 reasons why Tyson Fury beat me.
It's just what let's move on. I want to see the I would really like to see the Joshua fight. Don't get me wrong. Me saying it doesn't happen is not me.
Well, and here's the thing, Wilder, you're not out of the fucking game if you fucking take a fight and then win again. You're fine. Like, you'll be back in the picture. No one is really that close to you. If you were the champion for so long, there's nobody in the division that's that close to you that you should worry about taking a warm-up fight and knocking someone out.
Fury's talking about taking a warm-up fight in between Joshua because he doesn't want to wait around. If Usyk takes a fight, he's going to fight some
Joe Blow.
some guy he's clearly going to win against, but just to stay in shape and stay fucking loose,
Yeah, some guy on the ESPN roster.
I think Wilder would benefit from a fight because mentally he seems to be all over the fucking place.
And possibly to try out some different styles.
That's not a bad idea.
You know what I mean?
But, well, we'll see how that plays out. We've got a big fight coming up this weekend here. We've got Canelo Alvarez making his return.
Yep, to super middleweight.
Now he's going at super middleweight in a unification bout with Callum Smith for the one title that Smith holds, and then the vacant title that's also up for grabs, correct? We're looking at the WBA and the WBC titles, right?
Yeah. This is kind of one of those situations where you got two guys who are kind of the best of their region of the world. Yeah.
Yes.
You got Canelo kind of runs, this side of the world, and Callum Smith is the number one guy from across the pond. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think Canelo, in my opinion, is the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world. So
hard to argue with that. I mean, the man just picks up titles all over and vacates them at whims. Like, I don't need your shit. I'm going to go to this division and fight for this title. I mean, it's undeniable at this point. But Smith is legit. I mean, this would be a good fight. I would expect Canelo to win here as well because he's fucking Saul Alvarez, dude. Like, until we see him beat by somebody that's not named Floyd Mayweather, there's no reason to pick against him.
1-2?
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason to pick against him.
It's nuts.
So, yeah, but I'm excited about that fight. It should be good stuff.
Yeah, I think Canelo wins. Canelo's defense has gotten so much better over the years. Like, he's always been a hard puncher. He's always been able to get guys out of there, but I think his defense is really where he's really improved over the years more than anything. You know what I mean? His way to get in there and the head movement of just dodging all the punches. When he fought Danny Jacobs, oh my God, he was making Danny Jacobs look stupid.
I know. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful thing. I'm excited for this fight.
Yeah,
it's just another string of pretty solid boxing that we've had going on.
Yeah.
And
who are you taking?
Oh, Canelo.
In what fashion?
I think it'll wind up being a decision.
Think so?
Yeah.
I think Canelo by TKO in the 9th.
TKO in the 9th. All right, that's a bold prediction. Well, let's round out the show with what is rapidly becoming one of my favorites, which is Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships.
Yeah, that's
Bare Knuckle Boxing, the BKFC, put on their final show of the year, which is BKFC 15. Mm-hmm. And I have some clarification. And as of right now, this show does no sponsorship with BKFC. I'm not getting paid to tell you all this. I'm just saying, as a fight fan, it's a good deal with their app and their streaming events.
Yeah.
Like, I just signed up for it this past weekend. You get a free trial, and you have to download their app, which is like if you got a Fire Stick or whatever, it's just BKTV. Then if you sign up, it's $6 a month. All right. And then you get their access to their library and their other shit. And plus, they put on streaming events like last night's, or not last night, it's been several days now, but last event, BKFC 15, which is included in the $6 a month that you pay.
Yeah.
And then they also put on pay-per-views. Like they did a pay-per-view at their last event, BKFC 14, and that was $20 if you ordered it and you're not, you signed up on their $6 thing and have the app. But if you're doing the $6 thing, it's $4, bro.
Wow.
It's a fucking $4 pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I mean, and $6 is reasonable. That's $1.50 a week.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm down with that. I think as a fight fan, and if you like this sport particularly, I think that's a great deal, and you should go check it out right away.
Sure, that sounds like it's
because like BKFC 15 was well worth the fucking $6 I paid for the whole month, bro. Without a doubt. Like, that was an enjoyable event. All but one fight was a knockout. Interestingly enough, when you were over here, and we watched the one fight here in the studio, and you saw the one decision, that was it. Everything else was a stoppage. Yeah, everything else on the card was a stoppage. I just want to talk briefly about the main event and the co-main event. And let's touch on the co-main. Both of these fights, the main event was hit by a change. Yeah. But the co-main, this was originally billed as like UK versus the USA. We were seeing originally Mark Godbeer, excuse me, was going to fight in the main event. And then Tyler Goodjohn, who is a pretty big deal, both of those guys over in the UK bare knuckle scene. Okay. They're both undefeated, and this is their U.S. debut. But then Godbeer fell out and was replaced by BoBo O'Bannon. But we did get Tyler Goodjohn versus Charles Felony, sometimes Crazy Horse, Bennett, which if you are a fight fan of any kind, you've heard the name. He's been all over. I mean, he was in Pride back in the day. He's been everywhere else. He has like 76 MMA fights.
Yeah,
he's done
got
boxing.
A few street fights against MMA fighters.
Yeah, he's got street fights. He's a wild dude.
Yeah, he's crazy.
He's done bare knuckle. He lost to Goodjohn, but it was a good fight. Yeah. He was actually his best bare knuckle performance. The interesting thing I like about the sport is it is a place where older fighters can go and compete.
Yeah.
And because it's only fist fighting, you don't really have to worry about near as much. Like, you're not facing these killers that are trained in 18 different disciplines that you need to keep up on as an older fighter.
Yeah.
Where you're just not fast enough anymore to deal with takedowns, where you might be able to handle their kickboxing, but their takedowns you can't stop. They don't have those worries, So he is a little bit older, but it doesn't mean he's not competitive. It was a great fight. Goodjohn won. I was expecting so much more from him, though.
Yeah.
Like, this is a highly touted prospect. I thought he was going to mop the floor with Charles Bennett. He didn't.
Yeah, Crazy Horse is always game, though.
Lots of posturing. Dude put his hand downs, Goodjohn put his hand downs all the time. Did the Conor McGregor, not the hands behind the back, hands on the waist, walking right in, chin out, slipping a lot of punches, but then he started getting caught a little bit.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he won it, though. He said he spent 2 weeks in quarantine, and living in hotels. Like, he's officially moved here to the U.S., but he's living in hotels. He lives here in Vegas now. I think he's definitely somebody to watch in BKFC.
Yeah, sounds like it.
I'm hoping that we might get lucky here in the new year as we're expanding our studio to a different location. We're going to be able to start bringing fighters in for interviews, which we're unable to do in our present location. He is a guy that's going to be on our radar because he's here in Las Vegas. I'm hoping maybe we can land something like that. But he's definitely, despite maybe a slightly disappointing performance, somebody to watch. Did you have a chance to go back and watch any of those fights?
I saw the Crazy Horse one. It was pretty close, I thought.
It was pretty close. I thought he might have lost. Actually, I wouldn't have been surprised if there'd been a split decision.
Yeah,
but
I just feel like it was one of those situations where, with the posturing and all that stuff, like I feel like he won the judges over a little bit with that because with the dodging punches and doing all that, it kind of gave that extra oomph. Like he had the style points.
You could hear Charles Bennett after the fight, right on the microphone. He turns to the camera and he's like, basically, look at that fucker's face and look at mine, and you tell me who won the fight.
True.
And that was before the judge's decision came in. And yeah, Goodjohn was beat up and bloody, and Bennett was relatively unscathed, which is unusual in a bare knuckle competition.
True. So easy to cut people, though.
It is very easy to cut people. You don't need much. But I was entertained by it. The main event, though, I thought really came through and provided some excitement here. We see the return. This was a heavyweight contest between Sam Shewmaker. It was supposed to be, like I said, Godbeer. Winds up being BoBo O'Bannon, another British fighter, I think. I might be wrong on that. But he was undefeated, 2-0 in bare knuckle. And Sam Shewmaker really returned to form here. He is a former champ, and, man, he lit him up.
Called out the current champ after.
It was an amazing fight. Yeah, he lights him up, TKOs him, had him down multiple times in the first round, gets the clear dominant win, and then calls out the current champ, which is Joey Beltran, who was there as a commentator, comes up in the ring. Very respectful call out between those two guys. Beltran, if you follow MMA at all, is a former UFC fighter. I believe he's in Bellator as well. He's a nice guy. I've met him here years ago. We wound up in line together at a UFC weigh-in.
That's cool.
At getting beer.
Oh,
it was like, I looked at the guy who's like in the line. He had multiple lines, and I'm like, it's fucking Joey Beltran. So I was like, what's up, Joey? Introduced myself. He's real cool. Just some dude in line at getting beer. Nice guy. Very good bare knuckle boxer. I think him versus Shewmaker will be an amazing fight. Like I'm legit excited about that. That's going to be a big deal sometime in the next year. Not going to touch on the rest of the card because there's just no need, and we've gone pretty long here today. But it was very entertaining. I'm excited for that. But we do have to talk about the next BKFC real quick, Paul.
Yeah.
They're not coming back until February. They're coming back on Super Bowl weekend. They're going to be in Florida on location and putting on an event.
Yep.
And it is headlined by their major acquisition, not only of this year, but their biggest acquisition ever.
Yeah.
That is Paige Van Zandt. So I can guarantee you that she is going to be making the rounds throughout January when they have no event. She's going to be hitting the talk shows, and she's going to be trying to get in that Super Bowl bubble.
Oh, yeah.
Of press.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Which, because of who she is.
UFC does the same thing, yeah.
Yeah. But she's Paige, and she's got that crossover. She's already been on the Today Show. She's on Dancing with the Stars. She's been on Good Morning America, I believe.
Yep.
So she's got a shot of going back there. And there's a lot of novelty here. Okay, let's be honest, because it's bare knuckle.
Yeah.
She's super cute. This is a super bloody sport. People are like, what the fuck? I don't know anything about who she's fighting. Girl looks tough, though. You got to be tough to fight bare knuckle, period.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess, and I mean no disrespect to her opponent, is someone she should beat here.
I would hope so. Unless.
I know they signed a lot of fighters to their 125-pound division.
Yeah.
She should win. But she is actually the headliner in this fight over a major title fight, which is the co-main, which sees Johnny Bedford
taking on Dat
Win, who we've talked about prior on this show, both of them. But Dat Win had been scheduled a couple weeks ago, BKFC 14.
Well, this fight, was supposed to be that fight.
But originally it was supposed to be Bedford versus Win, and then that fell through, and it was Win versus Williams, I believe.
Yeah.
And then that fell through, and now we're getting the original fight rescheduled. But that's how much they're investing in Paige.
Yeah.
Headlining, and I think they're intentionally not doing an event in between there because they want this build-up. This is
Big
BKFC's
media build-up.
biggest fucking moment.
Yeah, true.
Right here.
True.
Prior to this, it was Molinagi versus Artem.
Yeah.
In which
That
they
brought
benefited from because their
That
guy
brought the
won.
hardcores.
Yeah.
You know?
Their guy beat Molinagi. So,
Yeah.
by their guy,
This is going to be a super casual event.
Absolutely.
They're looking for every casual viewer they can find, which is definitely smart.
It is because they've scheduled the co-main is almost guaranteed to be
A scrap.
one of the best fights probably of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys are legit. Bedford is legit. He's another, former UFC, former MMA fighter who has just found his niche.
And that win
in
is
bare
just
knuckle.
he's so freaking fun to watch. He's dodging,
Absolutely.
dipping, ducking, freaking dancing, all kinds of shit. He's the best. I think he's gonna whoop Bedford's ass, in my opinion. I'm sorry, but I think he's gonna beat Bedford bad.
It's going to be some, I don't know. I have no idea. I'm excited, though. I'll tell you what. I'm real excited about that fight. And I can't believe it's going to be like, with the app, it's going to be $10 for the 4, because I'm sure that'll be one of their charged pay-per-views. So whatever. That's just an honest opinion of a fight fan. You should check that out. That's going to be a barn burner. And I don't think anybody's going to be able to miss the build-up to this fight.
Yeah, for sure.
They're going to capitalize everything they can. They gave Paige millions of dollars here. This is why.
This is exactly why.
This is not all because of her fighting skills. The other part of it is her media.
Her media.
And her media contacts and
The people that
accessibility.
come, yeah, exactly.
So here you go.
Yep.
Here we go. So that's it, folks. That is our 2020 here on the S.W.A.T MMA podcast.
Yep. Thanks for rocking with us.
Absolutely. It's been an interesting year, dude. One we don't need to rehash and one we're glad it's coming to a close, right?
Yeah, shit.
I think everybody worldwide can agree that, thank God, 2020 is coming to a close. Let's hope it signifies some better times ahead.
New day. Yeah, fuck.
Yeah, so we'll be back when MMA is back. Here, wish everybody to have a happy holidays. Whatever you
Merry
celebrate.
Christmas,
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
New Year, all that good stuff. Happy holidays.
You can find our wonderful little show on anywhere you get your podcast from iTunes to Spotify to Google Play. If you like video, you can get the video on YouTube. You can find us on, Podcast Bay, everywhere. All of these outlets, though, and a lot of other information we've put together in one handy location for you.
SWATMA.com, where you can head over there, click the gear button, buy your, your significant other and maybe someone you like a nice holiday gift, and support the podcast.
Keep smoking, everybody. Peace.
Peace.